So it's really good to understand that the Holy Spirit is in our mind. Our body is in our mind, the world is in our mind, everything is in our mind, and nothing is outside our mind. So just for a short period of time, I'm just going to go through some inquiry or some things I'm going to ask you to do. These sort of things helped me to get into the decision maker mind, the observer or the witness. So if you'd like to just close your eyes for a few minutes. And I'll give you a couple of minutes now before I ask the first question, just to settle down. Just quieten your mind, use whatever practice you use, or you might just want to sit and sink below the thoughts. Okay, so just try to locate your mind. There's no right or wrong way to do this, by the way. It's just like an inquiry. So withdraw in, go right in. Now, I want you to try to find the next thought that's going to come into your mind. Just wait and look. Just wait for a thought. I want you to see if you can see the thought. Now, whatever thought that was, if you had a thought and you were able to see it, if you were able to see that thought, you're not the thought. Where you're looking at the thought from is the decision maker, is the witnesser, the observer. Now, once again, try to see the next thought that comes into your mind. Just wait in silence and wait for it to arrive. Now, one thing you can prove is that if they were your thoughts, if that thought that arrived was your thought, you would have known what it was before it arrived. You couldn't know because you were waiting for it. You were sitting quietly, looking, waiting for the thought. So this little exercise proves that you are not the maker of thoughts, because if you were, you would know what it would be, but you were waiting for it. In that moment, when you sat in that quietness waiting for it, you can't know what it is. So this little exercise proves that they're not your thoughts. They're thoughts that are fed to you from a thought system. It's a system of thoughts that is feeding into your mind. And all those thoughts refer to you as a body, as a person in a world. Now you may have had a thought, I need to remember to buy such and such at the shops, or I need to remember something, or after the group, or you might have had a thought about the meditation later on. Should I put my hand up? But you still can't know that thought when you're sitting watching the thoughts. Jesus says for us to look at our thoughts as a procession going through our mind. So the thought arises and leaves. And then we come back into the decision maker, the observer of the thought. Now, meditation in the traditional sense is where you focus on your breath and you notice when you've attached to a thought, and then you gently bring your mind back to your breath. That's the meditation I learned that we call, we assume, or we sort of call it Buddhist meditation, breath meditation. So there's various meditations that you can use. But one thing in that type of meditation is that you're noticing when you've attached to a thought, you've been drawn away from it, and then you bring your focus back to your breath. So with our forgiveness practice, what we're trying to do all day, every day, is notice when we've attached to that thought, just like in meditation. But we don't bring our mind back to our breath. We bring that thought to the Holy Spirit. And we have it replaced with another a true thought, something that corrects it, gives us. So our Course in Miracles journey is about correcting our perception, correcting our thoughts. So if you've ever, I'm assuming everyone's had the Holy Spirit correct their perception. And one thing that I noticed on my journey was when I sat quietly and offered up the fear thoughts or the egoic thoughts, the guilt thoughts, the unworthy thoughts, or the judgment thoughts of someone else, all the rubbish, like, you know, you're just sitting in a big rubbish dump in your mind. But one thing I noticed as I started to go within and look at my mind is that you can really only have one thought at a time. So when you're in the ego thoughts, if you offer them up as the decision maker, so if you can let a thought go, you're not the thought. If you can say, Holy Spirit, I give you this thought, you can't be the thought. You're the one letting it go to the Holy Spirit. And then when you then feel a little bit peaceful after you've done that, and you say, Holy Spirit, bring me the correction, which is all we're asked to do, is be willing to be corrected. You can start to see that you're sitting there with a sort of a quiet mind waiting for the correction. And then at some stage, a correction comes in. Something comes into your mind to help you. And that is the Holy Spirit. It might just be a remembrance of the daily lesson. It might be a remembrance to apply the daily lesson to the upset. That is the Holy Spirit, because the ego would never tell you. The ego thoughts are based on separation. So any thoughts that say apply the daily lesson, or remember what Cate said, or remember what David Hoffmeister said here, any other teacher you follow, or anything from the course, or, you know, anything that comes in that helps you, is the Holy Spirit. We do not have our own thought system. I don't have Cate's thoughts. There's no such thing as Cate's private thoughts. We only have a choice between thoughts that come in that tell us we're unworthy, that tell us we're guilty, that tell us we're separated, that judge others. Now, just doing this little exercise where you look and what is my next thought going to be, means that they're not your thoughts. You're the one witnessing them. The ego, what happens is when we're caught up in the ego, we're not in the decision maker, we're not in the observer. So as you go and you keep doing more and more forgiveness and more introspection and watching your mind, you start to move more and more into that place where you're watching the thoughts, and you can see a thought appearing and you just say no thanks and let it go. And that's what we call sort of like quick forgiveness and instant forgiveness. If you get caught up in the story that the ego brings, it brings one thought, and then if you attach to it and show interest in it and join it and say, yes, yeah, I am bad, yeah, I really mucked up there, or I shouldn't have done this and I shouldn't have done that. You're in the thoughts again. They've come in, they've overwhelmed you, and that's when you generally have to do what I call medium forgiveness or long forgiveness. Sometimes it could be just sitting down and just saying, what meaning have I given this? And let it go. So you can watch the meaning the ego thoughts have given something and let it go. And other times you need to, there's going to be like a lot of sort of forgiveness to do, long forgiveness, which is where it might take a few hours to unwind you from it. And it doesn't matter what it is, as long as you do it. So you're willing to dig away at it until it's released and gone. So as I've said many times before, forgiveness is any time you're using like repeating something from the Course, thinking about the love of God, feeling into it, whatever you're doing that isn't any thoughts based on fear and guilt and judgment, you're in the Holy Spirit. So our brothers can speak from the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit can appear in your mind, through your thoughts, through something, reminders that is something helpful. And this is how we validate that we're not the thoughts in our mind, because we start to see that when we get something that's like an inspired idea or something from the Holy Spirit, we didn't come up with it. So in truth, who we are is that decision maker waiting and choosing. So it's like the chooser or the observer, where we're choosing which one, so when you do rules for decision, Jesus says it actually gets you into like a Holy Spirit activation. There's something in that rules for decision that pushes your mind into the Holy Spirit, and it sort of gives you protection against the ego.